Woman in Laurel County, she is turning her personal pain into powerful purpose. Erica Lawson wants to help others. After surviving a suicide attempt, she is using her story to shine light on mental illness and suicide prevention. WKYT's Alyssa Williams has more.
The National Alliance on Mental Illness says millions of Americans are impacted by mental illness each year. People like Laurel County native Erica Lawson.
I have MDD, I have PTSD, I have anxiety. When I hit rock bottom, it was rock bottom. And I honestly just wanted to end it all.
After several months of planning, it was in April of this year when Lawson decided to take her own life. But she is grateful her attempt failed. Lawson was then sent to a mental health facility in Louisville.
When I went away, I learned, a lot of coping mechanisms, like things that I didn't even know about, like art therapy, music therapy.
It was after treatment that she wanted to turn her pain into purpose.
That's why I'm going to college now to become a music therapist. And I just want to help people that have been through the same things that I have been. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing and show other people that they can get through it, like no matter what.
And by sharing her story, Lawson also hopes that people will light up London with teal and purple lights in order to bring awareness to suicide prevention.
September 10th is Suicide Awareness Day. When you hear suicide, it's just kind of brushed off. So I want to let people know, lighting up London would be the biggest thing to me for others, not just for myself, but for others.
In Laurel County, Alyssa Williams, WKYT.
Lawson says she'll be planning a gathering to let off balloons in honor of those who have died by suicide.